The girl who stood alone. The arena of Drathos was a place of blood, screams, and broken bodies. It was built for one thing: entertainment. And on this day, the crowd had come to see something they never thought possible. A human girl had volunteered to fight. The aliens laughed when they saw her. She was small. Her skin was pale. Her clothes were simple, like rags. Her name, spoken over the loudspeaker, sounded weak compared to the roars of past champions. Mira, of Earth. The crowd booed. Some even threw food at her as she walked out. But Mira didn't flinch. Her eyes were calm, focused. She looked around at the towering aliens, at the glowing lights, at the cracked floor where many had died. She didn't seem scared. Across the arena, a massive gate rumbled open. Smoke hissed, chains clanked. Then a tall beast stepped out. Green skin, black horns, eyes like fire. The announcer shouted his name with pride. Thralox the Unbroken. The crowd roared in approval. He had killed over 40 fighters. His armor was stained with blood. His claws were longer than Mira's arms. He looked down at her and laughed. "You are nothing," he growled. "One hit and you'll break." Mira didn't answer. A loud bell rang. The fight had begun. Thralox didn't wait. He charged, roaring, swinging his hammer with full force. The crowd screamed in excitement. Everyone thought it would be over in one strike. But Mira ducked. The hammer smashed into the ground, sending dust into the air. She moved like a shadow, quick and silent. Her foot slid forward, her hand striking his side. He barely felt it. He laughed again. But then, something strange happened. Thralox stepped back. His eyes twitched. He touched his side where she had hit him. Blood. Not his. Hers. A small cut had opened on her hand during the strike. A single drop of her blood had touched his skin, and he froze. His body shook. He gasped. His arms dropped the hammer. His knees buckled. The entire crowd went silent as the mighty Thralox fell to the ground. He wasn't dead, but he looked terrified. His lips moved slowly. His voice was dry. "She's flame-born." Guards rushed into the arena. He screamed and crawled away from Mira like she was a monster. The crowd watched in horror and confusion. What had just happened? Mira looked down at her hand. The blood was glowing just for a moment. A soft golden light like fire under her skin. Then it vanished. The guards surrounded her, weapons raised. But they didn't attack. They didn't dare. She stood still, not running, not fighting back. "I'm done," she said calmly. "I don't need to prove anything else." They took her away. In the crowd, a tall alien scientist watched with wide eyes. His name was Vraylin. He wasn't like the others. He didn't cheer for violence. He studied power, history, blood, and what he saw that day shook him. Back in his lab, he reviewed the footage again and again. He slowed it down. He zoomed in on the moment the blood touched Thralox's skin. There was a flash, a burst of energy, something deep and ancient. Not just pain, not poison. Memory. Thralox's brain had lit up like it had recognized something. Something buried in his species' past. Something they had all forgotten, or been forced to forget. Vraylin opened an old file, hidden deep in the Empire's archives. A forbidden name appeared. Flameborn. It was a legend. A ghost story told to scare children. It said that long ago humans had power, real power. That they could bend fire, light, even the thoughts of others. The galaxy turned against them and wiped them out. But what if they weren't wiped out? What if they forgot? And what if this girl, this simple human girl from Earth, was the key to waking that power again? Vraylin leaned back in his chair. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. Not of the girl, but of what she could become. Back in her cold prison cell, Mira sat quietly. She looked at the small scar on her hand. It had stopped bleeding, but deep inside her something was burning. Something she couldn't explain. She had seen it in Thralox's eyes. The fear, the recognition. She didn't know what it meant. But she knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The blood signal deep in the Empire's science tower. Hidden beneath steel walls and glowing energy shields, Mira sat in a glass-walled room. The lights above her flickered every few seconds and the air smelled of chemicals and fear. Alien guards stood behind the walls, watching her like she was a bomb waiting to explode. No one spoke to her. No one even came close. Since the arena, whispers had spread like wildfire. A human girl had made Thralox collapse, not with strength, not with speed, but with a single drop of blood. At first, no one believed it. The recordings were reviewed 100 times. Every angle, every sound, every tiny moment. Yet the same thing happened each time. Thralox made contact with the girl's blood. And he fell. Not like a warrior, not like someone in pain, but like a man remembering something that should have stayed buried. Vreeland watched the videos more than anyone else. He hadn't slept in 2 days. His thin fingers tapped across his console as he ran analysis after analysis. Alien biology, human genetics, molecular traces. It didn't make sense. Mira's blood had a pulse. Not a heartbeat, but something deeper. Like it remembered things. Like it was trying to wake something up. He finally ran a classified scan. Something forbidden in the Empire. A neural echo scan, meant to detect memory, traces inside blood samples. What he found shook him. When the blood touched Thralox, it didn't just cause a reaction. It triggered a vision inside his brain. A flash of fire, stars exploding, voices chanting a name in a forgotten language, and one clear image, a human woman, covered in golden flame, walking through a battlefield. Every alien around her was kneeling. Vreeland backed away from the screen, trembling. He knew what this meant. The legend was true. The Flameborn were not extinct, and the girl in that glass room wasn't just a fighter. She was a spark, the kind that could set the whole galaxy on fire. Meanwhile, Mira sat quietly, staring at her hands. The pain from the arena had faded, but something else remained, a warmth in her chest. It wasn't just the blood. It was a feeling, like her body had recognized something it hadn't felt in centuries. Like her veins carried more than just life. They carried memory. But memory of what? Every night, she dreamed now. But they weren't her dreams. In them, she stood atop towers made of glass and flame, stars bent toward her, giant beasts bowed before her. Whole planets shook when she screamed. In one dream, she raised her hand, and fire danced across the sky like her fingers were paintbrushes. She didn't tell anyone about the dreams, not even the voice she started hearing when she was alone. You were more than this. You were a queen of stars. At first she thought it was a trick, her mind playing games. But the voice was clear, soft and female. It didn't scare her. In fact, it made her feel less alone. On the 4th day of her capture, something changed. Vreeland requested to enter Mira's room. The guards hesitated, but he had clearance from the Empress herself. He walked in slowly, carrying a small device. Mira looked up at him without fear. "You're not like the others," she said, surprising him. "No," he replied. "I'm not here to harm you." He placed the device on the table between them. It was a cube of light and wires. "What is that?" she asked. "It shows truth," Vreeland said, "if you let it read you." Mira hesitated, then placed her hand on it. For a second, nothing happened. Then the cube lit up with gold. A soft hum filled the room, and Vreeland's screen lit up with strange, impossible data. Inside Mira's blood were ancient codes, codes that matched no living species. Not even human. These were pre-human, from a time before recorded history, buried so deep in her DNA that only a traumatic event could wake them. And the arena had done just that. Vreeland stared at the screen, whispering, "The awakening has begun." Mira pulled her hand back. "What did you see?" He didn't answer her directly. Instead, he leaned closer. "Have you heard of the Starborn Wars?" She shook her head. "It was before time. Before planets had names, there was a race of humans who weren't like us. They could burn, heal, create with thought. They ruled the stars, until the other races united against them and wiped them out. I thought humans were always weak, Mira said softly. They wanted you to think that, Vreeland replied. But they didn't destroy your kind. They buried you, rewrote your story. Now you're just waking up. Mira stood. Her heartbeat was faster now. She didn't feel fear. She felt purpose. Outside the room, the guards noticed strange flickering in the hallway lights. One of the glass panels began to crack on its own. The air was growing warm even though no heaters were on. Something was stirring in the girl. And soon, the galaxy would feel it. The forbidden memory Mira was no longer just a girl in a cell. Something ancient had begun to whisper in her blood, an echo that pulsed louder each time she breathed. It wasn't a voice she heard with her ears. It was something older, deeper. A feeling, a knowing, the kind of thing that made her body move before her mind could catch up. It guided her dreams. It stirred when she closed her eyes. And worst of all, it remembered things she didn't. Across the stars, those who had long held power began to tremble. In the cold chambers of the Imperial Palace, deep in the core world of Cyrith Prime, the Empress of the Galactic Dominion watched the footage of Mira's awakening for the 13th time. She didn't blink. Her face remained carved in perfect stillness, but her claws gripped the arms of her throne until they cracked. Behind her, 3 alien generals, each from a different species, stood waiting for her orders. But none dared speak first. When the video ended, the Empress finally exhaled. Her voice was like rusted metal dragged across stone. She activated the signal, she said. The tallest general frowned. It could be a mutation, a fluke in her DNA. No, the Empress replied sharply. She carries the imprint, the first fire. The last time it lit, we lost 12 systems in 1 week. Entire fleets burned mid-orbit. Our memories were erased because we feared what we saw. She rose from her throne and walked toward the center of the chamber where a single iron door stood. The door hadn't been opened in over 300 years. It was sealed with blood, locked with screams. Do you know why we buried the truth? She asked softly. The generals remained silent. She turned. Her eyes glowed red. Because the last time humans awakened, they didn't ask for peace. They came for justice. With a wave of her hand, she ordered the door opened. Inside was the Codex of Lost Ages, a memory crystal so dangerous it was sealed under threat of death. Only 3 beings in the Empire had ever read it. The Empress was one of them. Now she would read it again. Far from the palace on the prison moon where Mira was kept, something else was stirring. Each night, Mira's dreams grew stronger, more detailed. No longer just flashes of stars and flame. Now she could see faces. She could hear voices calling her by a different name, Solhara. In one dream, she stood on a balcony made of obsidian glass. The sky above her was split by 3 suns. Her armor was glowing. Soldiers knelt below her, not out of fear but respect. They called her High Flame, leader of the Flameborn, guardian of the memory core. And then, she burned. Each dream ended in fire. Her fire. The dreams didn't fade when she woke. They followed her. Even the walls of her cell sometimes pulsed with warmth as if reacting to her thoughts. The guards began to complain of headaches. One had a nosebleed every time he passed her door. Another refused to go near her, muttering that her eyes weren't normal anymore. Mira didn't understand what was happening, but part of her no longer cared. The girl who had once been a slave, then a fighter, was now something else. Her fear was gone. Her silence was strength. And the more the Empire watched her, the more she felt their fear growing. She wasn't alone for long. 2 levels below her cell, another prisoner was brought in. Kyle. He was older, taller, and half-human. His eyes shimmered silver in the dark. Rumor said he was dangerous, unstable, part of a secret bloodline that the Empire had hunted for generations. They put him in the cell beside Mira, thinking she wouldn't notice. But she did. On the second night, he whispered through the vent between their cells, "I saw you fight." She didn't respond. "You're not the first," he continued, "but you might be the last." That made her speak. "What do you mean?" "There were others," Kale said. "Flame-born like you. The Empire found them, used them, killed them before they could wake. But you woke too fast. Now they can't control you." He told her everything. About the first war, the burning. Accord, the hidden memories sealed inside flame-born blood. He said the Empire had rewritten history, erased all records of human power, and turned their descendants into slaves. The flame-born gene had gone quiet for centuries, until Mira bled. "They'll try to kill you," Kale said. "Or worse, use you. Your blood can unlock things, not just memories, weapons, doors, whole systems hidden since the first stars." Mira leaned back against the wall. She wasn't dreaming anymore. She was remembering. The next day, alarms rang across the prison base. An energy wave had rippled through the prison systems, disabling cameras, corrupting files, and triggering strange readings in the lower reactor levels. Security blamed it on a glitch. But Vreeland knew the truth. He had just finished comparing Mira's blood data with an artifact recovered a century ago from a dead star. A crystal buried in a planet's core, impossible to open. Now, with Mira's blood, the artifact had opened like a flower touched by sunlight. Inside it were star maps, war logs, and names. Names written in a human language no one had spoken in 10,000 years. One name appeared over and over: Solhara. Vreeland stared at the screen in disbelief. It was her. It had always been her. And now that she was awake, the galaxy would soon remember what it tried so hard to forget. The awakening, the lights went out across the entire prison moon. At first, the guards thought it was a power fluctuation. That happened sometimes on Drethos 9, especially when the old reactors overheated. But this was different. This was quiet, wrong, the kind of silence that pressed against your chest and made your lungs forget how to breathe. Somewhere in the darkness, a siren tried to start up, but it died mid-howl like something had reached inside the machine and crushed its voice. And then Mira opened her eyes. She hadn't slept. Not really. In her mind, the dream hadn't ended. It had shifted. She'd seen the halls she was in now, but not from the ground. She had seen them from above, glowing like veins in a sleeping body. She saw where the guards were, where the scientists were hiding, where the failsafes had been shut off, before anyone even knew they had failed. And most important, she saw the door. Not a normal door. It was hidden under the floor of the observation lab. A hexagonal hatch covered by metal, only visible to someone who already knew it was there. In her dream, it had opened when she bled on it. Now in the waking world, she was going to find out if that dream was a memory. The emergency lights flickered back on, dim red glows that barely lit the walkways. Mira was already standing by then. Her cell door buzzed, locked, but she didn't touch it. She didn't need to. Her fingertips were warm again. Not hot, alive. She placed them on the glass and something on the other side hummed in response. The locks clicked open. Across the hallway, Kale's eyes widened. "You did that?" Mira turned toward him. "It's not me. It's something inside me." Kale's door opened too, though she hadn't touched it. They walked together, silent but connected now by something neither fully understood. Alarms stayed dead. Defense systems remained offline. It was as if the base had chosen to let them pass, or feared what would happen if it tried to stop them. In the control room, Vreeland stared at his screen in disbelief. Security feeds were blank. All systems were dark except for one panel, cell, block Theta, where Mira had been held. The feed blinked twice, then showed a single image. A human figure bathed in golden light, walking calmly through the steel corridors. Vreeland didn't run. He didn't call for guards. Instead, he whispered, "It's happening." They reached the hatch exactly as Mira had seen it. Kyle stopped. "That's not just a door, that's a vault." Mira knelt, Her fingers traced the grooves. The air around it vibrated softly like it was remembering a name it hadn't heard in ages. She pulled her knife. Without a word, she sliced her palm. Kale stepped forward in panic, but Mira was already pressing her bleeding hand to the metal. For a moment, nothing. Then, the hatch lit with golden fire. Lines spread like veins across the steel. Symbols bloomed like flowers. The metal peeled open, not with force, but with reverence. Inside was darkness. And then, stairs. The chamber beneath wasn't built by aliens. Its walls were smooth stone, warm to the touch, engraved with swirling marks. Language, music, memory, all in one. Mira's footsteps echoed as if she were walking through time itself. The air felt ancient, filled with dust and hope. At the bottom, they found it. A pillar of crystal, taller than any of them, hovering above the ground. Inside it swirled a golden flame, small and slow like a heart barely beating. Mira stepped forward. Kale touched her shoulder. Wait. What if this is a trap? She shook her head. It's not. How do you know? Her voice was quiet. Because it remembers me. She placed both hands on the crystal. At once the world vanished. Mira found herself floating in an endless void of stars. But she wasn't alone. 1,000 lights surrounded her. Each one a memory, a name, a voice that had once called her sister, daughter, flame. She saw cities that no longer existed, ships made of light, children born with fire in their veins, and, at the center of it all, stood herself, but not as she was now. This version wore armor made from living metal. Her eyes were suns. Her hands left trails of fire when they moved, and behind her the stars bent as if they too obeyed her will. You were not meant to sleep, the echo said. You were a guardian of the flame. You were Solhara, keeper of the first memory. Mira tried to speak, but the words weren't needed. The knowledge flowed into her, images, feelings, instincts. She didn't learn it. She remembered it. And with that remembering came pain, the pain of betrayal. The Flameborn had not fallen in war. They had been betrayed from within. A choice had been made to seal away their memories, to bury their blood, and scatter their children across the galaxy. All for peace. But peace had come with a price. Slavery. Silence. Forgetting. Now the fire had returned. Mira woke on the floor of the chamber. Kale knelt beside her. You were out for 2 minutes. Are you okay? Mira didn't answer. She stood slowly, and as she did, the golden flame rose from the crystal, wrapping around her shoulders like a cloak. The fire didn't burn. It obeyed her. Kyle took a step back. You're not the same. No, she said, I'm not. On the surface, the alarms came back online. The lights blared red. A fleet of warships was arriving above the moon. The Empress had seen enough. Kill the girl, she ordered. But it was already too late. She wasn't a girl anymore. She was awake. The alien Prince, Jarek of the Dominion, was not like his brothers. Where they bathed in conquest and screamed their names across dying worlds, Jarek was quiet, calculating. His strength did not lie in how many skulls he crushed or how loudly he roared in the war councils. His strength came from patience, the kind that made his enemies underestimate him until it was far too late. He had studied every war the Empire had fought, every rebellion crushed, every bloodline wiped clean, and yet even he had never read the words Flameborn until 2 nights ago. The moment Mira's blood struck Thralox, secret channels across the Empire flared alive with symbols not seen in 10,000 years. Jarek was summoned into the inner chamber of the Empress herself, not as a prince, but as a weapon. There is a girl, the Empress had whispered. A girl with blood that remembers fire. She handed him a single task. Bring her in. Or, bring back her heart. He traveled in silence aboard the Sovereign Talon, a ship built for speed and death. Its armor was grown from hybrid bone and black alloy, immune to most known weapons. Inside, his elite guard, the Crimson Vow, sharpened their blades without a word. But Jarek knew something felt wrong. When he had watched the footage of Mira in the arena, Alone, calm, bleeding, and yet undefeated, he had felt something stir in his chest. A sharp pull. Not fear, not rage. Something older, familiar. As if the image had pulled him from a dream and whispered, "You have seen her before." He ignored the feeling then. Now, approaching the moon, that pull was a scream in his bones. The sovereign talon cut through Drethos 9's atmosphere like a knife. But as it descended, the crew noticed something strange. No defensive fire, no resistance. The surface systems were still blind. The entire prison grid remained in a blackout, but not dead. It was alive, pulsing with an energy signature the ship's systems couldn't track. Like the moon itself had developed a heartbeat. Jarek stepped onto the landing ramp, sword in hand. No guards met him. No resistance, no traps. Just empty steel halls that hummed under his feet. He followed the sound. Not with scanners. Not with orders. With instinct. He walked the bloodless paths until he reached the ancient chamber Mira had opened. The vault of memory, long sealed, never meant to be touched by alien hands. And there she stood. Mira was barefoot, her back to him, facing the crystal pillar that still pulsed gently with the echo of fire. Her hair floated slightly as if the air around her shimmered with heat. She didn't turn, not even when his soldiers lined the room, weapons raised. "Do you know who I am?" Jarek asked. "I remember," Mira said softly. "I've seen you before." He frowned. "We've never met." "Yes, we have," she replied. "Not here, not in this life, but in the memory flame. I saw your face beside mine." Jarek's grip tightened on his blade. "You lie." "I bled, and the galaxy trembled," she said, turning to face him. "But you fell long before I did. You were one of us once, one of the sworn protectors." He stared into her eyes and saw it. Not her reflection, but himself, dressed in armor made of starlight, kneeling before her. The sword dropped from his hand. Around them, his soldiers panicked. "Prince?" But Jarek couldn't breathe. Visions cracked open in his skull. Memories he had never lived. Fires. Wars. Oaths made in forgotten tongues. Mira dying in his arms once, her light fading while he screamed her name, Solhara. He staggered back. What have you done to me?" "I've done nothing," Mira said, stepping closer. "You were meant to remember. Like I was. Like all of us." Jarek collapsed to one knee. "Not in weakness, but in surrender. I was sent to kill you." Mira knelt in front of him. "Then choose now. Kill what you were, or rise for what you are." He looked up, and in that moment, the last shreds of the Empire's illusion cracked. He whispered, "My name is Jarek, and I was flameborn." Later that day, the stars above the prison moon shifted. The sovereign talon flew again, but this time not toward the Empire. It headed into deep space. On board were Mira, Kyle, Jarek, and a small crew of rebels who had heard the truth and followed. They traveled to the edge of forgotten systems, searching for others, for the ones who had felt the pull when Mira bled, because something else had awakened when she touched the vault. A signal had gone out, not just through space, but through blood. Across colonies and city worlds, humans, long broken, long silent, began to dream. They woke up screaming names they never knew, saw stars burn behind their eyelids, felt heat in their palms that couldn't be explained. Some panicked, some ran, but others remembered, and those who remembered began to gather. The Empire burns, the galactic dominion had ruled through fear for over 12,000 years. It crushed planets like they were ants beneath a boot, rewrote histories with ink made from silence, and turned once proud species into obedient shadows of themselves. Every rebellion was burned. Every whisper of resistance was drowned in blood. The Empress had watched generations come and go, convinced nothing could shake her throne. But the throne was trembling now, because something ancient had returned. It didn't arrive with war fleets or superweapons. It arrived in a whisper. The dreams of children. In the quiet panic of scientists watching power grids fail when certain humans entered a room. In the slow spread of flame across archived neural networks where no fire should exist. It began with one girl. Now it was thousands. Across 17 systems, strange reports flooded Dominion command posts. Human laborers were refusing orders, not with protests but with quiet stares and glowing palms. Mines collapsed where no explosives had been placed. Surveillance devices shorted out as soon as they focused on certain individuals. In one case, a full battalion had laid down their arms and knelt when a teenage girl whispered a name she didn't know she knew, Solhara. That name had become a virus in the Empire's memory network. A forbidden code. A key that opened long-locked, files hidden since the first Fire Wars. And once the name was spoken aloud, those files didn't close. Instead, they spread. In the capital world of Sireth Prime, the sky itself changed color. Storms of golden light formed over the city without clouds. The people looked up and didn't see war. They saw memory. Visions projected into their minds. Of a galaxy where humans once ruled not through tyranny, but through light and balance. Where they were guardians, not slaves. Builders, not tools. The lie the Empire had told for millennia was unraveling, and at the center of the unraveling stood Mira. Aboard the reclaimed flameborn vessel Starwake, Mira stood on the command deck. For the first time. She didn't remember how to fly it, but the ship remembered her. When she touched the control sphere, the lights bloomed. When she whispered, the AI responded in her voice from 1,000 years ago. The ship had waited. Its AI, Orion, had been left in slumber, hidden under the surface of a dead moon. It now spoke with a warm, ancient tone, like a teacher finally greeting a student who had returned from exile. Commander Solhara, it said, the last systems are online. All flameborn beacons have been activated. How many responded? Mira asked. 3,492 confirmed. 47 still awakening. Jarek stood at her side, armored now in a hybrid design of his old Dominion gear and the flame weave of the Flameborn. His eyes no longer held confusion, only loyalty. They will try to strike first, he said quietly. They'll want to crush us before we grow stronger. Mira nodded. Then let them come. The Empress did not wait. She unleashed the Solar Vengeance Fleet, the largest armada assembled since the Black Dusk Revolt. Thousands of ships. Planet killers. Titans wrapped in wormhole engines. Every soldier was ordered. No prisoners. No mercy. The human girl must die before her flame reached others. They arrived above the desert world of Varnak, where Mira's forces had just begun gathering. But what the Empire didn't expect was that Mira didn't plan to fight like they did. She didn't meet the fleet head-on. She walked alone onto the sands, barefoot, hands open, standing beneath 3 blazing suns. A single drop of her blood landed on the ground, and the planet responded. It awakened. Varnak was not a desert by nature. It had been scorched and silenced in the old wars, but its memory had survived. Now, with Mira's blood, the old weapons beneath the sands remembered their purpose. Flameborn structures rose from the dunes, powered by light, shaped like crystals and fire. The air shimmered, the ground trembled. Then came the sound, a deep hum that no machine had made, the voice of memory. The soldiers of the Empire hesitated, and in that hesitation, the Starwake struck. It dropped from orbit, shields glowing gold, firing not with energy cannons, but with memory, beams that unraveled metal, stripped ships of control, and made Dominion AIs scream as they remembered what they once served. The Empire's ships faltered, its soldiers fled, and in the heart of the fire stood Mira, no longer a symbol of rebellion. She was a force of nature. The Battle of Varnak lasted only 7 minutes. When it ended, the Flameborn controlled the skies. But Mira wasn't satisfied. This isn't about burning them down, she said later in the war hall. It's about waking the truth. She ordered her fleet to broadcast the memories stored in the old vaults, not just to rebels, but to everyone. Dominion citizens, Outer Rim scavengers, even Imperial lords. The truth could not be undone now. Humans were never weak. They were sealed, caged, like fire inside glass. And now, the glass had shattered. The flame-born rise time slowed as the final hour approached. Across the burning sky of Sirith Prime, the seat of the Galactic Dominion ships blazed in mid-descent like falling stars. The city world, once thought untouchable, now trembled under a sky choked with ash and memory. For 12,000 years the Empire had ruled unchallenged, its towers casting shadows across worlds, its lies wrapped in steel and blood. But on this day, the shadows bowed to the flame. Mira stood atop the command bridge of the Starwake, staring down at the capital from orbit. The golden flare of the flame-born crest now shimmered across her back, not sewn but burned into her cloak, alive, pulsing with the heartbeat of history. Every breath she took echoed with the voices of those who had come before her. Guardians, builders, warriors of light, yet she was more than a memory. She was the final spark, and the galaxy was ready to burn, not with rage, but with truth. The flame-born fleet hung above the capital like silent stars. They made no first strike. They sent no demands. Instead, they opened a live broadcast, unfiltered, raw, undeniable. All across the Empire's systems, people watched. Not soldiers, not weapons. They saw a memory, a transmission from the lost archives unlocked by Mira's blood. It showed what had been hidden. The first Flameborn, walking side by side with the old species, creating peace, shaping suns, lifting worlds from dust. It showed how fear twisted unity into control, how betrayal turned allies into tyrants, how humanity, once protectors of balance, had been erased by those they trusted most. Children in slums watched and cried. Old Dominion officers fell to their knees, because deep in their bones, even they remembered the lie. The Empress did not leave her throne. She waited, clad in her battle regalia, obsidian armor laced with psionic inhibitors. She watched Mira's approach through the inner temple's mirror windows. The girl would come. She had to. This was not a war of numbers or machines. It was a war of wills. When Mira finally stepped through the last gate, no army walked beside her. No ships roared overhead. Only silence followed her steps, and the crackling warmth of a flame that would not die. "You look like her," the Empress said, rising slowly. "The one I killed long ago." "You didn't kill her," Mira answered. "You buried her." Now she remembers. For a moment, the silence between them felt like gravity, pulling all things inward. Then they moved. The battle was not of fists or blades, but of memory. The Empress struck first, casting psychic walls of false history, illusions meant to blind Mira with guilt, doubt, erasure. But Mira's flame burned through each one, not in rage, but in clarity. Every lie collapsed beneath her steps. Every shadow of the old fear withered in her light. The Empress screamed as her own power began to turn against her. The throne room fractured. Its stone walls cracked as the truth finally took root. Memory surged like a river bursting a dam. And then Mira bled, a single gash across her shoulder, deep, painful. But the moment her blood touched the stone beneath her feet, everything changed. The room itself froze. Time bent. The stars above paused, in the sky, and from that drop of blood the entire galaxy saw her. Across systems, humans fell to their knees, eyes wide with light. They didn't know why they wept, but they did. They felt the warmth returning, the old fire. On distant planets locked away, children felt the chains in their minds break. Old men gasped as their memories, stolen at birth, came rushing back. Alien. Generals ordered their ships to stand down, not out of fear, but reverence. The Flameborn had risen again, and this time they would not be silenced. Mira did not kill the Empress. She offered her a choice. Let the old empire fall. Help me build something better. The Empress, broken and trembling, wept for the first time in her long reign. I don't know who I am without the lies. Mira's voice was soft. Then let's find out together. Peace did not come overnight, but it came, not by force, but by remembrance. The Flameborn led the rebuilding, not as rulers but as guides. They helped other species unlock the truths they, too, had buried. The Empire's machines were repurposed, not for war, but for healing, education, light. 1,000 new stars were lit in honor of those lost to the forgetting. And Mira walked away from the throne they offered her. I'm not a queen, she said. I'm just the first to remember. She returned to Earth, not to the ruins, but to a cliff overlooking the quiet oceans. There she built no palace, no temple, just a garden, and each day new humans arrived, still awakening, still afraid, but hopeful. They called her many names, but she answered to one. Solhara. Far in the stars, a new constellation appeared. 3. Flames, circling a single point of light. Scholars would later call it the Flameborn crown. But those who had been there, those who had seen her, they knew what it really was. A promise. That light, once born, never forgets how to rise.